What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 1 of the Self Mastery Show. Super excited to kick it off with an interview today. I'm here with Dennis Simsek, aka the Anxiety Guy, and he's the host and producer of the #1 health podcast on iTunes called, well, you probably already guessed it, The Anxiety Guy. And he helps individuals who find themselves having to cope with their daily challenges and struggles to actually defy their fears and overcome them once and for all. In his earlier days, he had been overwhelmed with years of chronic anxiety from social interactions and the fear of being judged wrongly by other people, an experience I'm sure many of us can relate to. Dennis is also a certified CBT and NLP master practitioner. I was inspired by Dennis's content, and really, he actually helped me diagnose and manage my anxiety, so I truly believe that he can do the same for you. In this episode, we dissect anxiety at its core, why it's important to understand the root cause of your anxiety, and a couple of strategies around it that can change your life. As you listen to this interview, I really want you to be mindful and embody the experiences and context that we talk about so that you can better resonate with it and learn from it. Now, without any further ado, let's dive right in. Mr. Dennis Simsek, welcome and thank you for being on the Self Mastery Show. Before we get too deep into it, I just want to congratulate you for being #1 on iTunes for health and also #1 in New and Noteworthy most recently.
Thank you, my friend. That's awesome. I'm really honored to be here. It's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to sharing some knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge achievement, right? And being at the top of New and Noteworthy, it's definitely where I want to be in the next little bit, and being able to chat with you and being able to model your success is just going to be an absolute pleasure. So please tell me what got you started into building your legacy.
What got me started into podcasting? It's funny that you say it. A lot of people growing up have told me, Dennis, you have a nice radio voice. So, the whole Anxiety Guy brand and reaching out and trying to help people started with blogging. I think 7, 8, 10 years ago or something, blogging was the thing to do, and podcasting, I didn't even know anything about it. And then YouTube was there, and then podcasting kind of showed up now where everybody's getting a podcast going. But I'm finding that people are on the go all the time, and if you can reach them through the audio resource, I believe that it's the best way to take in good information. So I decided, let's go the podcast route. And I gave it about 10 episodes. I said, if people like it, I'll continue doing it. If nobody's watching it, I'll most likely kind of just gear back towards blogging and YouTubing. But it seems to have picked up. People like it.
So what were you then before the whole Anxiety Guy journey?
You really want to know?
I want to know. We want to know your build up to it.
Yeah, there was it all started with the name The Anxious Athlete. This was about 8 years ago. And I created an ebook, fresh off my anxiety disorder, fresh off an incredible amount of inner challenges that led me to minutes away from driving my car over a bridge, basically. It was that traumatic by the day. So the Anxious Athlete grew out of the experience of the disorder. And I said, you know what? I'm first going to gear towards mainly athletes, because out there you hear guys like Marty Fish on the tennis tour, a couple basketball players. I mean, people out there as athletes, professional athletes, from what I've noticed, tend to keep in everything and not share it with their teammates or their coaches and whatever. And it really shows in their downfalls and in their results. So I said, you know what, let's gear this towards athletes, called The Anxious Athlete. An ebook came out and people liked it. But after a while, I said, we got to change the name and kind of, grow the audience a little bit, because nobody's going to buy anything. Nobody's going to listen to anything. Nobody's going to take The Anxious Athlete seriously. So the Anxiety Guy grew, and it's been a voice for people suffering from anxiety, but also people that are looking to get on a path towards self-mastery and become the greatest version of themselves. So I've dedicated the rest of my life to honing in on the idea that it's not about overcoming anxiety. It's more so to get to a place where you've shifted your personality and your identity more than anything. It's like shifting you as a person. And I think that's what separates the anxiety guy right now from other anxiety resources out there.
Wow, it's great to know that you were already impacting the life of others already from the very beginning, right? You saw that anxiety was affecting the life of athletes, and so you created something specifically for them to become the best version of themselves, right? So tell me, in your own words and to you, what is anxiety?
Anxiety, in the most basic way to explain it and the most popular way that people know about it, is an over concern or an over worry, an irrational amount of worry and concern over aspects in your life that could definitely be all kind of grouped together. So you'll see people struggling with relationships, finances, leisure time, you name it. Anxiety is basically an overwhelm. It's a sensitivity to certain aspects of your life. And I like to really hone in on the idea that people are sensitive. When you talk about what is anxiety, anxiety is mainly a sensitivity to external circumstances, challenges, situations, people, things. As well, anxiety is also an internal challenge, mainly trying to peel the onion as to why you feel the way you do, why you experience sensations, why these repetitive reflexive thoughts seem to overwhelm you and show up out of nowhere and don't go away. So anxiety is very much a cycle of concern and worry over aspects of your life that really have not shifted so much, but the very thing that has shifted is the way you interpret those things and the way you perceive what's going on in the outside and what's going on in the inside, which will then cause you to go into the label that everybody gets as being having an anxiety disorder. Pretty much it.
Right. And anxiety isn't just a binary black and white thing, right? There are different levels of it. Some people might experience it more intensely than others, and some might only experience it while doing certain things versus something else, or it might even be due to a certain place or time, right?
Totally. Absolutely. Anxiety can start with one simple experience that went in a direction that was unexpected. So, for example, someone's at the shopping mall and they have a panic attack over feeling like they can't breathe or whatever it is, or they see a friend or something like that. They don't want to talk to that person and they start to get anxious and sensitized inside. That one experience tends to snowball. It tends to move towards other experiences in somebody's life. It creates an enormous amount of sensitivity towards things. And what starts to happen is the battle between this internal system, which is the parasympathetic system, and the sympathetic system tends to gear towards the sympathetic system, which is related to fight, flight, or freeze. And when that's turned on for extended periods of time, a person can truly go through life battling themselves as much as they think that they're battling the outside world. So with this, I've also seen a tremendous amount of cookie crumbs that lead to childhood. And almost everybody I work with has suffered one, if not a number of different emotional traumas around the ages of 0 and 10, which have then accumulated and escalated. And later on in life, those same fragments of those experiences show up. And when they do show up, you got sensitivity, you got anxiousness, you've got misinterpretations and irrational ways of perceiving things mainly.
Right. And to build off that point, we should also note that on top of just general anxiety, right, there are also such things as sleep, health, social, and more surprisingly to me, relaxation anxiety, because
Totally.
I didn't know it at the time until I started consuming your content. And I was like, damn, that's why I just can't seem to relax, right? I always try to relax, but I felt restless. My mind is here, my mind is there. Like there's always something for me to do when in fact there sometimes just really isn't anything, right? And I think that's a very common experience for a lot of people, but they don't understand why, right? Because I definitely didn't.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, if especially I notice it a lot in these bigger cities where, go, 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 you're always on the move, your to-do lists are huge, you got to please everybody. It's almost like you've been so accustomed to this lifestyle that anytime you try to do something that's unfamiliar, like I'm going to go and try to meditate today. I'm going to go and do that yoga thing that my girlfriend keeps telling me to do. Well, okay. So you go and do the meditation or you do the yoga and such, and you find yourself struggling at such a high level. Why can't I just let myself go and be in this present moment? You can't, right? And what starts to happen is you go in and out of future situations that are going to occur while you're meditating and back into your past, reliving things from the past. So, yes, relaxation anxiety. You got panic disorder. You got things like agoraphobia. I work with a lot of people with hypochondria, where it's health related. I'm scared of what these sensations in my body mean. Am I going to get a physical ailment? So misinterpreting bodily feelings as well. The list goes on and on and on. And the problem is, more than anything, David, is that people are walking around with these labels and they're projecting this label onto other people. And they start to believe that they are anxiety. And you'll hear me with videos and podcasts and such say every single time that you are more than anxiety, which means that you're not your behaviors. You are not the thoughts that go through your mind. You are not your past. You are responding to things in a way that's keeping you anxious. You are attaching yourself to thoughts that are keeping you anxious. So my biggest goal is to help people understand that these aren't things that they are. You are not this identity or this personality. It's just things that you're necessarily doing, right, and responding to and inactive towards. It's basically ideas that have grown so big that at this point, people can't seem to see anything else but those ideas.
And I really do relate to so much of what you just said because, a little context around my general experience with anxiety is that I obviously, at the time, I didn't know it was anxiety that I was dealing with, right? I was being annoyed by the smallest things, right? I would wake up and I didn't have the energy or the willpower to get out of bed. So I'd pick up my phone and I'd go through social media and it would just be a downward spiral from there, right? I basically lost my day. And I was worried about things I didn't even have control of. And, I'd had episodes of chest pains. That was probably the most serious point of my experience. So I definitely, saw a doctor and the doctor referred me to a cardiologist. And the cardiologist, we did stress tests on the treadmill. We did ECG. They did an ultrasound. And they basically told me, like, your heart is fine. I don't know why you were having chest pains. And I was like, well, great. I don't know either. And it's also reinforced the fact that I don't like going to see the doctor because, more than half the time I go, my experience is that I'm told that they don't know what is wrong with me. Go home, rest, and come back if it gets worse. Or if you feel this, this, and this, go to the emergency room. When in fact, I know there's something, right? Because I feel it and it's out of the ordinary. And I'm pretty good with handling pain for the most part. So I just basically lived with it for, a while longer. And it wasn't until maybe about 3 months ago when I was on iTunes and you were there and I binged The Anxiety Guy. And I basically, quote unquote, diagnosed myself with some level of anxiety because of you, and I also get tired really easily, even though I get more than enough sleep and rest. I just want to crash sometimes after doing just even one task.
Gotcha. You know what? It's there are so many different reactions, bodily reactions, and such going on in the world of an anxiety sufferer. When you go to the doctor and you feel something, many times you're given the okay and everything's fine and you're healthy and such. But the last place people tend to look is basically their emotional states and their thinking patterns and the way they're perceiving things in their lives. They think that there's no way that, my thinking or my go type lifestyle or anything like that, or my past, there's no way that these things could be causing me to feel this way at such a heightened level. I mean, I was I remember, being so dizzy and depersonalized that I would touch things and I didn't really know what I was touching, or I couldn't describe what I was touching. I couldn't describe what I was hearing. And I had a really difficult time memorizing things and focusing in on things. So the struggle can come in any direction. I mean, some people have the neurological issues, some people have the digestive issues, you name it. But especially in today's world, the proper knowledge and information for an anxiety sufferer is like gold. I mean, if you got someone who's been in the shoes of a sufferer who comes in and says, hey, what you're dealing with is based around the subconscious mind holding on to experiences from the past that it believes it's reliving in the present moment. And when you explain it to them like this, they start to go, it's interesting how you say that. I haven't forgiven mom from the ages of 8, 9, 10, or whatever. I haven't let go of that experience that I had with dad. I haven't matured out of my childhood ideas or beliefs. It really makes sense, Dennis. So I usually go into this idea that you can't move forward until you clean up your past. And people need to understand that it doesn't mean a whole process that's going to take months and months and months. If you've gone through an emotional trauma in your life and you haven't moved forward from that trauma mentally and emotionally, and you're still pissed about something, or the bullies are still bugging you from the playground and such from way back when, all you really need is a couple moments of courage in order to see the image that you're running in your mind over that past experience and to reperceive what's going on, meaning to send safety to your system over what happened. That's really what it all comes down to. If you can project safety over what happened in the past, your present life starts to change and you start to move towards the vision for your future. But what do people do today? People are, go. I'm going to give this meditation thing a shot a couple times, see if it works for me. It's basically this little tiny skill that you have no idea how it really works. Your understanding of it is very little. You've never done it before. People are telling you to do it. And you're going against years and years of accumulated emotional trauma from childhood. Who do you think is going to win, right? So this is where we're running into trouble, where we're not understanding why these patterns are arising each and every day, where they're coming from, and what have I not let go of or accepted fully in my life to this point, right? So that's really important if anybody's suffering from anxiety, is to look at how your current life is a result of something that may have occurred from the past.
So instead of just dealing with the symptoms then as they happen, it's really looking at it from the source.
Absolutely. It's exactly what it is. But in my, not knowing how to leave anxiety for good, I used the vocabulary of coping and managing. And when you use vocabulary and words such as coping and managing, what starts to happen is unconsciously you start to sort for things that keep you coping. So, for example, if I have a pint of beer, I know that I can escape myself temporarily. It's going to come back, but this is the way I cope with my problems. If I tell a friend all the difficulties, all the situations that are harming me and bugging me right now, that friend becomes my shoulder and I continue to cope and manage my problem. So when someone turns from viewing their disorder or their struggles from a place of coping and managing to actually terminating and releasing out of your life, you tend to sort, unconsciously, you tend to sort for things that move you into that direction. Because a lot of your internal self-talk, a lot of who you think you are, a lot of these things internally will begin to project externally. So whoever you are, you're going to start to find that you energetically move towards things that are in line with the way you see yourself and your identity, your personality, your beliefs, your actions, your ideas. Depressed people hang out with depressed people. It's not a coincidence. Anxious people find more anxiousness. People that think they have illnesses tend to run into people that are, also misinterpreting their feelings and thinking they have illnesses as well. And what happens? They start to create a tribe. So you'll see this all the time in anxiety forums and groups and such online, where people can't escape the tribe. The idea of me feeling like crap, going on the forum, telling people if they've ever felt this and that and how difficult my life is, tends to get a response that makes me feel temporarily better. Okay, that temporarily better is something that people get addicted to. Okay, so I leave a bit, and then the cycle goes on and on and on, right? Until a podcast comes out and someone tells you differently, right? And tells you what's actually possible in your life past coping and managing with the problem.
It really sounds as though having dealt with anxiety was both good and bad for you, right? Would you agree?
Absolutely. I tend to view everything at this point as just training for life. My anxiety was built up from a very early age, being pushed into a sport I didn't know I wanted to play. There was a ton of pressure there. Bullied at the schoolyard, trying to be accepted in high school, doing everything I could to be accepted, acting like people that were popular in school. I mean, you name it, like over and over and over again. And then we wonder where our anxiety comes from. Well, it's coming from all of these things that you feel like you need when in fact you just want them. You want to be popular. You want to, be the athlete of the year, but you don't need these things to feel fulfilled, happy, feel inner peace. So for me, anxiety was the worst and best thing that's ever happened in my life. And there were only a few of them, but they said, you know what, Dennis, this is going to be one of the best things that has ever happened to you. And right now you can't see it, but in the future you will. And I pushed those guys aside. I'm like, are you crazy? I feel like crap right now. I want to kill myself. All right. So, absolutely. If anybody's, and the other thing is it prepares you for pretty much anything in life. If you can overcome an anxiety disorder, everything else seems like the volume's been turned down. I mean, there is nothing, pretty much nothing, for the rest of your life that you can't turn around and handle.
I would say that for me right now, facing the fact that I have some level of anxiety and trying to figure out the best way I can go through it. The best part is that, I've realized and accepted the fact that I have it, and I can start adjusting my behaviors and habits that are causing things to suck. But, at the same time, the bad thing is that I feel like this would, this, what I'm about to say is definitely going to resonate with a lot of people. And it's that you kind of fall into the mindset of, oh, I have anxiety, and I just start associating everything that sucks to it, right? When in fact, it may not even be caused by anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Think about this. Two things. So if you were right now to run these words through your mind, notice how you feel differently about both of them. I have anxiety. Notice how that makes you feel when you run it through your mind. I'm doing things that are causing me to feel anxious. Or I'm having an anxious experience. Notice how you felt between those two. Now, how many times throughout the day are people telling themselves that they are something and that they have something compared to they're doing something, right? Imagine what would happen in a person's life if they stopped telling themselves and adding to the fact that they believe they are anxiety or whatever it is, depression or anything like that, and they started to see it more so from the outsider's perspective or an outsider's point of view, where, hey, you had a pretty good morning and you were flustered for a brief moment there when someone criticized you. And then later on in the day, you relived that experience and it made you feel depressed. So it's not that the entire day was chaotic, but in fact, there was a brief moment of unawareness there that caused you to allow the snowball to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So again, I mean, we're talking vocabulary and we're talking a certain self-talk that because I mean we speak to ourselves more than anybody else on this planet. So you are who you are based on your self-talk. Really comes down to it. So if you're continuously talking to yourself in a way where you are projecting victimness, right? And you're going to find that you accumulate more of it and you start to gear towards more and more challenges and problems that you can't handle, right? But if you project yourself and you are aware of your internal self-talk consistently, and you find that your identity is more so, I'm a person in transition. I'm not perfect. I had an anxious moment, but I'm doing the best I can with the information I have up to now. Great. How is that going to change your life? Well, it's going to change your life dramatically. Dramatically. All you got to do is keep it up, no matter what happens.
So it's the mindset, right? Being mindful and reminding yourself that you're in transition. You're not stuck at the beginning, but you're also not over it either.
Yeah. It's this idea that people are always trying to get somewhere. I'm trying to put this behind me. I'm trying to overcome anxiety. And it's interesting how quickly they want that to happen. And the more quickly you want it to happen, the more you're going to gear towards answers that are not going to promote long-term growth. Instead, view it as a transition. View every challenge, internal or external, as a training opportunity. Recognize that every anxious moment is an opportunity to practice something different. Right? So now I feel anxious. Great. It's an opportunity to practice something different. And this is where the whole CBT thing comes in, the cognitive behavioral therapy method, where mindfulness, becoming self-aware, detaching yourself from certain thoughts and attaching yourself to other ones, behaviorally trying your best to make the snowball of optimism and a new identity stronger through your actions. So again, the CBT method is very powerful, but it does take a ton of work, right? The one that doesn't take as much work is what's called NLP. So you've got anxiety sufferers out there. Okay. Well, let's say that you want to be able to reperceive things very, very quickly. All right. Well, what are the two languages of your subconscious mind body, right? Well, one of them is based around images, and the other one is based around feelings. So if you can change the way you feel about something that's bugging you, and if you can change the images that you're running in your head constantly about what's going to happen in the future and what took place in the past, then what's going to happen is you're going to begin to feel a whole lot lighter, as if you've released this entire weight of negative energy that you're carrying around with you. So what NLP does is it takes those images that are highly distorted and catastrophic, and it starts to put dolphins in the corner, and it starts to put clowns there, and it starts to run, circus music in the background. And as you're going through this in your imagination, you're starting to go, holy crap, well, you know what? Maybe it is this way and not that way. And maybe I can perceive it in this way, and I don't have to live with it this way. Images, with emotion behind it, are going to give you, the greatest realizations that you've ever encountered in your life. But again, that's the difference between NLP, where it works with the images that you hold in your mind body, and the CBT, where you have to do the work in the moment, right?
So NLP is basically aligning yourself with the person that you want to become.
Yeah, that's part of it. Definitely. NLP in the most rooted form, where Richard Bandler and John Grinder, the founders, wanted it to be like, is more so taking an experience, any experience, either from the past, something that happens right now, or something in the future, and being able to manipulate it in a way where after you're done, you're able to broaden your horizons, and you're able to step out of the perspective that's been making you feel like crap for so long. Right. And so it's basically altering the images in many different ways. I mean, black and white flickering, turning it into a quarter size. And this is all done more so in a very relaxed, almost in a transic state, where you have access to your subconscious mind body. Right.
Right.
Hope that makes sense.
So just to give people a little bit of context and background, right? I graduated with a psych degree, so I know a little bit about CBT and NLP. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, and NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. So I want to ask you now, why not therapy and counseling?
I always got to tiptoe around this one.
Okay. I know what you mean. So let me just reword that, right? So we're not to say that there's no value in therapy and counseling, right? But
exactly.
It's good that there are the different options out there for people who may not prefer therapy and counseling, right? For example, I've talked to people who see it as a problem versus journey type of a distinction, right? And in that case, they would feel that going to a therapist means that they see anxiety as a problem. But if you go to a person such as like a life coach, for example, you see anxiety as part of your journey, and you see anxiety just as another roadblock, and that they're usually someone who's been in your shoes.
Totally. It's good. Well, I've found in my own personal experience and from people that I've worked with that counseling and therapy in the most traditional sense, where it's like talk therapy, doesn't really get down. It does get to the root of the problem, but it doesn't give you the tools in order to start shifting yourself so you can create some kind of positive change. It's the idea, and I experienced this myself, to talk about the problems, talk about the root causes of the problem that you're experiencing today, with the hopes of magically coming to a conclusion that will make you re-perceive the experience and to feel differently. And it's almost like leaving your fate in the hands of some kind of magical being that's going to show up after you've conversed with someone enough times. I know people that have, gone through counseling for years, and I asked them, well, how are you doing? Well, I'm managing my anxiety. Things are moving in a decent direction. And you can tell by their body language and the words that are coming out of their mouth that they have not gotten to a place of transforming themselves. And the brain in itself, and neuroscience has now proven that the neuroplasticity of the brain is very, very much accessible and active even later on in adult years, meaning you change. Meaning you can change who you are, you can change your associations. So in my experience, regular counseling didn't do me much good. It got me to understand where the root causes originated from to what I was feeling on that day, but it didn't go much farther than that. Now, that can work for some people. It usually works for people that are too scared of taking too big of a leap. For example, you've got people out there that are in inner conflict. They've got so much conflict within them. Dennis, I want to change. I want to change my life. Okay, well, if you woke up tomorrow morning and this whole anxiety or whatever struggle is gone out the window and it's gone, is there any part of that scares you? And you listen to their answer and they go, well, yeah, that does scare me a lot. It scares me that that I won't be worrying over something, because worry equals safety to me. And safety is based around familiarity. So I've been familiar with this identity for so long, this worryful person. And you're telling me that tomorrow morning it's all going to go away. Hold on a second there, right? As crazy as it sounds. Those people are the ones that are okay with the counseling idea because they're okay going, in and out of their identities from what I've seen. You have to do some soul searching and you have to figure out, what are you scared of the most about change? What scares you about it? What scares you about taking that leap? Because everybody wants to change until they start communicating with their subconscious. And then the subconscious starts to go, oh, we're too highly invested in this person. And that is the very thing that can really sabotage a person's progress towards positive change work. Right? I hope that answered the question.
Right. I gotcha. So tell me, how do you know and tell that you've mastered the mental self, right? At least the anxiety part. How do you feel and see things differently?
I have a really basic and general rule for people that I work with, that if you can go through a 21-day cycle, 21 days straight, feeling 80% emotionally, feeling 80% between neutral and pleasant. Okay, so 80% of your day spent between neutral and pleasant, and 20% of your day is based around a few worries, a stressful event, whatever it may be, but you're not attaching yourself to that world. You're quickly detaching yourself from anything that goes down that path again. I've found this to be a marker for people that can say, hey, I have really gotten to a place of mastering myself, because if we want to find chaos, it's everywhere. And if we let our impulsiveness and our emotions run the day, we're going to be running that day straight to the ground and beneath it. We are going to be walking around like zombies, unconscious, leaving our fate in the hands of other brains that tell us what to do, how to think, and so on. So 80% neutral to pleasant emotionally means that you encounter a situation that normally pisses you off. Someone cut you off on the road. Well, because of your training and because of your mindset over the last however long you've been working on yourself and the advices that you've gotten from other people, in that moment, all of those advices show up. And instead of becoming emotional and instinctual and cutting the guy off, going in front of him, in that moment, you ask yourself the question of, what else could this mean? What else could this mean? And if you can tap into what else could this mean, you can tap into the idea that this is a training opportunity. This is an opportunity to actually move one more step closer to who I want to be, because everybody wants to be better. They're just not willing to put in the work to be better.
So then the 20% are the worries that come and go regularly, right? In the day-to-day, basically.
Exactly. Like the guy cutting you off on the street, or the boss coming to you and saying he doesn't like your work, or your husband giving you a frown or a bad look, or dinner wasn't cooked right, or something like that. And the 20% is being able to chalk up that experience and to say, you know what, how much of this is going to matter in 5 years? How much? Well, 0, most likely. All of those experiences will mean nothing. So what do you want most in your life? You want to feel better. You want to have excellent mental, emotional, physical, and energetic health. Okay. So if that's what you want, then what you do and how you think about this moment matters more than anything else, right? Don't sacrifice your future just so you can keep your ego mind happy, right? Just so you can keep your subconscious familiar with the identity that you've been invested in for so long, right? That's the payoff, but that's the sacrifice as well.
So for someone who's, peaking in their life of self-mastery, and they come to you and they say, hey, my life is pretty good right now, but I believe it could be better, right? Because I want to become the best version of myself. Mm-hmm. What's a practical next step for them?
So the first step is to get comfortable doing things that are the most uncomfortable. And I'm not talking about putting yourself so far out there and bungee jumping or skydiving, none of that stuff. But I'm talking about if you're living in a chaotic world internally, what's the opposite of chaos? It's peace. Where's the chaos originating from? It's originating from the inside, mentally, emotionally, energetically. It's all on the inside. So if we're going to move towards this person we want to be, we have to begin to make friends with peace. You have to make peace with peace is the first step. And in fact, many times the only step that people have to take. So what I would suggest is start silencing everything around you. And you don't have to close your eyes, and you don't have to go into a deep transic state or do any kind of, crazy transcendental meditation stuff or anything like that. But just silence everything for a 2-minute period each and every day. And then next week, go ahead and make that 3 minutes. And then the next week, make it 4 minutes, and so on. Familiarize yourself around silence, because the only way your higher self, your true intuition is going to show up is when every fragment connected to chaos starts to dissipate and starts to go away. So I believe that being able to look yourself in the eyes in that silence and to be able to confront the very thing that many people are scared of, and that is to stop. Just stop doing things, okay? You don't need to fill up your plate with everything every minute of every day of your life. So that's the first thing, is to build on that. Make a ladder of every week. Surround yourself around silencing the world, focusing on your breathing patterns, focusing on your speed, since so many people out there are going 100 miles an hour all the time. And really it comes down to two things that people need to start off working on. One is what I just talked about, is the silence part, where you go into meditation. Two is a combination of speed, posture, and breathing, where you're aware of your speed, number one, because you can't think until you're at a certain speed. If you're going 100 miles an hour, you're going to be impulsive. You're going to be emotional. You're going to be reactive. If you go at 50 to 70% speed, you have an opportunity to think past this situation. Breathing patterns turns on your parasympathetic system. So focusing on exhaling longer than you inhale, which will create the cycle of rest and digest. We need that for anxiety. Thirdly is your posture. You'll notice what depressive people look like. You'll notice what anxious people look like, stressed out people. You'll notice that people who are highly internal, constantly overthinking things, catastrophizing, you'll notice what they look like. They're looking down, they're hunched over all the time, they're hiding from the world. So it's a combination of those two things mainly.
So in a broad sense, it's really slowing down and being intentional with what you do.
It really is, because to tell you the truth, emotional reframing, to me, regressing people to a time in their lives where it was highly traumatic, and being able to reframe those past experiences can sometimes be too overwhelming for someone, right? And because it's too overwhelming and they're not at the place where they can face the things that they need to face and reframe those things, first they've got to get themselves warmed up to reframe, right? So now when you're going through the things that we just discussed, you're starting to tap into another world, a world where you start to think more than you remember, a world where you can finally create the person you want to be and not live based on this artificial idea of yourself.
You've touched on meditation now 3 times, and I, for one, was and still am low-key a non-believer, only because it hasn't really worked for me. All right, I've researched it, I've read books, podcasts, videos, used countless apps on how to meditate for people who don't believe in it. But one day I decided to stop consuming the content and just try it. And I found that I couldn't sit still for more than 5 minutes at a time. So the next day, I did 2 minutes, and that worked. And over time, I started to do 2 minutes every couple of days. And as I started to become more disciplined. It got to a point where I can do 10 minutes at a time, sporadically, obviously, right? Not on a schedule or anything. And I guess I can say now that I've found meditation has allowed me to kind of slow down a bit over time, or at least I like to think it did. How does meditation fit into dealing with anxiety?
Well, what I like is I like people that are analytical. They analyze, but not overly analyze, but question certain processes so they don't just jump into it and then next thing you know it doesn't work. So I like that when you start to tread lightly towards meditation, because as simple as it is complicated in some way because people live complicated lives, and all of a sudden it's doing the opposite of what you do all the time. So it can be challenging. What I've found in the integration as far as meditation goes for someone who is in emotional distress consistently, I found that you can meditate anywhere, anytime. Your eyes don't have to be closed all the time. And I actually meditate every single day when I'm in a naturistic environment, for example. I'll be there. The frequency, the vibe, the energy around me will yell out inner peace. So it's very easy for me to keep my eyes open and to meditate in that form. Meditation isn't, finding a cave and going on a retreat for 4 weeks, not eating anything except rice. It's not that. It's like you're in deep meditation when you haven't shut your thoughts out completely, but you've gotten to a place where they're more so like the breeze. The breeze comes and the breeze goes. And you kind of detach yourself from anything that you need to do, anything from your past, any place you need to be, anything that needs to get done. And meditation, when you come at it from that perspective, it's not as overwhelming, right? It's not the idea that you've got to shut everything off. No, meditation is very much bringing yourself back towards focusing on detaching from thought, and then your mind will wander back towards something that you're going to do later on, and your job is to bring it right back to this moment again. So you're constantly going from the future back to the present, from the past back to the present, and so on, until you get to a place where it really becomes automatic. And when it becomes automatic, you just find that your system is so invested in this idea that this is my time, right here, right now. Nothing can take me away from this time where I am prioritizing myself, which again is another problem. People are prioritizing everything else in their lives, and they view themselves with their priorities last. And because that's the case, we wait till illness shows up. And when physical illness shows up, someone gets something serious or whatever, they become frantic. And all of a sudden the diet changes. And all of a sudden the pills are taken. And all of a sudden all of these things that may be beneficial and may have prevented the disease or the illness from showing up are now frantically being practiced. And it's already too late. So meditation is a very, very important practice that anybody can start to learn more about, and do it in small doses, just like you talked about. So good for you.
Thank you. I like how you mentioned that you can sit in nature and meditate with your eyes open, right? Because a lot of the guided meditation that I went through focused a lot around sitting upright, close your eyes, focus on your breathing, and sometimes they even tell you what to think, which really didn't work for me. But the one thing that I came across that really changed it for me was when I read that it's okay for you to have your own thoughts, because they just come and go, right, on their own. And You don't have to do anything about it. And just, after a few minutes of going through the thoughts, it slows down and basically almost all stops altogether, right? And then all you have left then is feeling your body in its place, right? You feel your arms are getting heavy, your legs are getting heavy, your chest gets heavy, your head gets heavy, and at first I thought something was wrong, but then I realized it's literally just me feeling my presence, right? My arms, they're always that heavy. It's just that we normally have our arms contracted so we don't feel the weight. So it definitely was an interesting experience.
It's interesting. And it's unfamiliar. So the moment you start to feel peaceful, you'll notice so many people out there, anytime something good comes into their lives or they feel peaceful, they push it away unconsciously. It's too unfamiliar, right? It's not something that has been reoccurring consistently in my life. So absolutely. The other thing with meditation is that you can focus. I mean, more than anything, it's the ability for us to gain a deeper hold on our focus and our concentration. And how quickly can people move from one thing to another these days? Instantly. I mean, we're going in and out of trances. I believe it's 15 to 20 times an hour, something like that, where you're here and then you're there and then you're constantly trying to solve that many problems throughout the day. So meditation can get you evolving towards a place where you focus on your breathing patterns more and you slow things down. You start to embrace the uncertainty of it all. This is uncertain. This feels different. Well, in that moment, again, you've got a massive opportunity to just simply allow yourself to be the person that will be the most happiest. And that is someone who is more so carefree, letting go of things and not over worrying about things. So it's one of the many practices that will help towards self-mastery for sure.
Exactly. Right. I totally agree. So I think the overarching message of our conversation is really aligning yourself, your mindset, your actions, and your beliefs to the identity that you want, right? Changing your negative beliefs that aren't helping you and are making your life, suck. And instead of letting your mind fall into victim mindset, it's an opportunity to do something about it and to form new responses to the scenarios that are causing us to be anxious, right? Would you agree that's pretty on point?
Well put. The biggest message especially with a lot of the mistakes I made during my road towards self-mastery, and it's still going on, of course, is not to base your strategy on either one of these things. Number one, hoping. Okay. So don't hope that things are going to change. Don't go into that as being your main strategy. And number two is motivation. Don't strictly rely on motivation to get you to where you want to go. Initially, motivation will kick your butt to recognize things that you need to do differently, and that's all good. That's all fine and dandy. But if you're watching motivational videos and you're looking for a little snippet here to get you inspired or motivated constantly, you don't have the right strategy in place, and your life is out of order because you don't have any structure behind it. So add the structure, right? Add the 2 minutes per day meditation or whatever you're going to do. Add these skill sets that you're going to use in moments that are challenging, and watch yourself begin to tap into progress towards who you want to be. So just my 2 cents there based around strategies that are being used way too much in today's world.
Amazing. Thank you, Dennis. I understand that you have an event in Los Angeles in March, right? The Self-Mastery Mastermind. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, what people can expect, and where they can sign up and find out more about it?
Totally. A full day event with me, Los Angeles, March the 16th, 2019. You can sign up for that. Grab your ticket at anxietyexit.com. I'm also doing a private dinner with a couple people. You can sign up for that as well at anxietyexit.com. And it's just going to basically be tackling the 4 components that lead to self-mastery in my world, in my perspective, which is We'll focus on the mental side of things. We'll focus on the emotional. We'll focus on the physical, and we'll focus on the energetic. So we're going to tackle all four. And by the end of it, you should have an incredible idea of what you need to do and how to get there. And a real clear vision as to who you want to become, right? And it's going to be a fun mastermind. You can ask all the questions you want, and it's for anybody, basically. So any listener right now who wants to come and join and just to make your life easier and better, come on over, anxietyexit.com.
I think this is a great event for anyone listening to this episode, specifically because the overarching theme of this podcast is to become the best version of yourself. And this event with Dennis is definitely aligning with that. So Dennis, please tell us where we can follow you on your journey as well on social.
Totally. The Anxiety Guy podcast on iTunes and other directories. It's great. YouTube channel. Look up The Anxiety Guy. I've got a ton of videos there. And again, I'm all around social media. All you got to do is search The Anxiety Guy, whether it's our Facebook tribe, we call it the tribe. Instagram, I share a lot of my life after anxiety stories and photos and such. People tend to enjoy those. You find me, just search The Anxiety Guy and I'm right there. I'm everywhere.
Your Instagram is actually amazing, by the way. It's lots of inspiration there. So for anyone who needs a daily dose of that, definitely go check out his Instagram. Amazing. Thank you once again. Dennis Simsek, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Have a wonderful day. You are more than anxiety. Love you all.